And our final movie of the evening is The Woman in Red. The Woman in Red is a 1984 romantic comedy filmed, directed by, and starring Gene Wilder. Wilder also wrote the script, adapting it from Yves Robert from Pardon Mon Affair. Sorry, my affair. It co-stars Charles Grodin, Gilda Radner, the great, amazing, hysterically funny, legendary Gilda Radner, by the way, for you kids out there. Our second appearance by Joseph Bologna, Judith Ivey, and the Kelly LeBrock. The film won an Academy Award for Best Original Song for I Just Called to Say I Love You. Written and performed by Stevie Wonder. The film follows a married man who becomes infatuated with another woman and his amusingly unsuccessful attempts to first meet and then become intimate with her. So yes, this film had a budget of $9 million. It was pretty successful. It made $25.3 million back in the year of our Lord, 1984. The film goes a little something like this. Gene Wilder is married. He's got kids. He's got a job like everybody else. And he happens to be coming home one day and he sees Kelly LeBrock. And, well, he's never thought about cheating on his wife before. But boy, howdy, does he really want to sleep with her. And he has never cheated on his wife before, so he doesn't quite know how to go about doing it. And that's the impetus that moves us forward. And then the movie kind of takes this left turn at Albuquerque to where it becomes about Joseph Bologna's divorce and a bunch of other shit that happens. And finally, Chris Bailey, he finally catches up with Kelly LeBrock towards like the end of the movie. They almost kind of get near having sex together, and Kelly LeBrock's husband comes home, and he has to jump out a window, and the whole world sees him do it. And then the moral of the story is don't cheat on your wife. The Woman in Red, everybody. You know, if you look at the poster, you see Gene Wilder and you see Kelly LeBrock, you're like, oh, this is going to be 90 minutes of Gene Wilder chasing Kelly LeBrock, and you would be wrong. they spend as much time on that part of that movie as they do a typical Bugs Bunny short. And it's about that kind of mentality. The rest of this movie is fucking Gilda Radner fucking with Gene Wilder, for the right reasons. I'll explain that in a second. But yeah, there's a whole bit where Gene Wilder is trying to like ask Kelly LeBrock on a date, and he doesn't know he's talking to Gilda Radner, so he asks her out instead, and he stands her up for a variety of reasons, and she spends the rest of the movie torturing him. It's awesome. Gilda Radner
Also,
is amazing.
by the way, a part of the inspiration for the "Do You Like Pina Coladas" song.
Yes. So I'll read this real quick, and then I'll throw it over to you guys. The major differences between the original Pardon Mon Affair and The Woman in Red center around the tone and cultural style. The French version, while comedic, has a more understated, character-driven humor with subtle social commentary on middle-aged infidelity and romantic desires. The Woman in Red amps up the slapstick humor and physical comedy. Boy, does it ever. Catering to American audiences with Gene Wilder's exaggerated, quirky performance. The American remake focuses more on visual gags and comedic set pieces, while the French original maintains a more balanced exploration of moral dilemmas and relationship complexities. And that's kind of really a lot of what I have to say about The Woman in Red. It's a bit meandering. What it has to say about marriage and infidelity and the listlessness of the middle part of marriage, the restlessness that goes on between couples, was much better said in American Beauty. Like, and again, like that was all there in The Woman in Red, but Gene Wilder just chose not to really focus on it. Instead, he was like, well, let's use this, much like Blame It on Rio. Let's use the setup of I want to cheat on my wife, but I don't quite know how, as the basis for a lot of slapstick humor. To which I'm like, okay. I guess if I was like my dad's age in 1984 and I wasn't watching this because I'm doing film study, I'm watching this because I want to be entertained for 90 minutes, it's fine. Gene Wilder's awesome. Gene Wilder is one of the most, I think, unappreciated, what's the word I'm looking for? I think Gene Wilder is an amazing performer. and I really think he carries this movie. He has a real charm about him. And like I said, Gilda Radner is hysterically funny, and then Charles Grodin and Joseph Bologna fill out the cast really nicely. It's a funny movie. It's one of those where no one was asking it to be deep, so it's not deep. So I can't fault it for not being something it was never meant to be. But as a film critic, I'm like, this is a bit slight. Dorian, I'm going to go to you first. Did you have to wait 90 minutes for us to finish fucking talking about LOL?
Sorry about that. No, I really enjoy this movie because for those of you who are listening just the audio or even the visual, who don't know, Gilda Radner and Gene Wilder were married. She actually sadly passed away before he did, and much like Geese, he was married for life. You know, it was one of those, he found his one true love, and that was who he's going to be with for the rest of his life. And when she passed away, that was it. Seeing them together especially a movie like this is fantastic because you know that Gene Wilder looks at him. Well, he did look at himself in the mirror every day going, I am a goofy motherfucker. I do not know how I have this hot woman, but you know what? Thank you, God. And I mean, same thing with Mel Brooks and Bancroft. But what's fantastic about this movie, in my opinion, is that again, is that Do You Like Pina Colada song? Is like they don't know that they are that crazy about each other, even though they are. And again, Kelly LeBrock, yeah, she's attractive, yeah. I mean, cool.
It's a bit of an understatement.
I feel like I just stabbed Mark in the heart there.
Let me real quick. I really didn't want to go on another tangent. I wanted to get through this, but for years, I don't know if you know this or not, but Robert and I don't agree on much. And one of the
no, really not. No.
And I was really surprised the fuck out of Sean too. No, I wasn't present for every single one of those fucking arguments. But one of those things that Robert and I constantly argued about was the looks of women. And so it's be one of those like, oh, I think she's attractive. I think she's attractive. I think she's attractive. And Robert's like, meh. And I'm like, well, who do you think is attractive? Did he throw a name out there? And I'm like, ugh.
Really?
so I'm sitting here like Kelly LeBrock, you know, like she's so hot, and you're just like, yeah, she's all right. Like, Jesus Christ, I've never felt older than I do right now talking to you guys, where I'm like, oh, Kelly, back in my day, we wore onions on our belts, and Kelly LeBrock was the height of attraction. Ugh.
I'm sorry.
You know, when you really think about it, Gene Wilder and Gilda Radner had this tender, loving, faithful, truly beautiful relationship. And the part where life doesn't seem fair is that Kelly LeBrock had to endure being married to Steven Seagal.
All right, keep going then, Dorian.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Keep going, Dorian.
No, again, I think this movie's fantastic. In this, like, I know this is going to be horrible for me to say. I cannot remember who directed this movie.
Gene Wilder.
Oh, yeah, sorry. This felt like a Billy Wilder comedy that should have been directed by Billy Wilder.
Okay.
Same guy who did The Great Race and all that stuff. There's times that, again, when Gene Wilder has a good director behind him, again, Mel Brooks, again, Bill Wilder, no relation, he does fantastic. This, he was still wonderful, but at the same time, it was like, excuse me, it felt like it was lacking in a way. Sorry, I swallowed, breathed, and talked at the same time, which is not a good thing to do. But no, this movie is fun. It's very much like Blame It on Rio. Again, watch it. It's fun, especially for for our generation, again, as much as we love Tim Burton, we don't like his Charlie and the Chocolate Factory that much. There's the 70s one with Gene Wilder. And again, obviously, we have a Young Frankenstein, which is amazing. This is one of these movies that's like, this is Gene Wilder just having fun.
I'm going to throw this out there. Mik, you're the youngest amongst us, so you seem like the best person to handle a conversation about middle age and marriage.
Okay.
Okay. I get the feeling that The Woman in Red and Blame It on Rio are both attacking the same point and the same audience, which is middle-aged people deep in the middle of their marriages. That they are speaking to subjects that deeply resonate at a time in the 80s, we're talking 40 years ago, at a time where marriage had a much more prominent position in American culture. To be married and to be settled was kind of like the height, part of the height of, I think, the American dream, the American culture.
Well,
this was what you aspire to. You aspire to be married and settled with the 2.5 kids in the house and the fence. And I don't think marriage holds a prominent position in American culture anymore. I think it's been savaged in a lot of ways. So I don't know if either one of these movies has quite the impact that it used to, because the audience, in the way that it would appreciate or understand marriage, is there anymore. Your thoughts?
So, no, I do agree. It's so the concept of the American dream, like the marriage, kids, white picket fence thing, has lost. And like it's a concept that my generation has lost a long time ago, and we just kind of accepted it. Like that's not gonna happen. But with like Woman in Red and LOL and all the movies that we're talking about right now, it's just like you can't exactly get what you want.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does, because I'm gonna bring Sean in here. Sean and I have been talking about non-traditional relationships a lot lately, off and on, both on air and off. And both Blame It on Rio and Woman in Red really only work when you see monogamy is the only way to go, and you are struggling with the yoke of monogamy. Right.
And like, I'm gonna out our relationship right now.
Sure.
So me, Dorian, and Shay have been living in her apartment, and me and Shay are planning on living in the same place, with Dorian also helping other situations. But no, when polycules are more like they work more. Sorry, I'm trying to let him settle so he can actually.
It's fine. This has been the busiest podcast ever.
I know. But like, polycules are the only way to make financial shit work.
There's a great TikToker. It's like monogamy in this economy.
Yeah, right? No, exactly. Because other than that, it's just you can't afford a place without having a roommate.
Yeah.
And so if you're in a narrow lens that says I can only have this person, the white picket fence, and kids, even then you might struggle at this point.
Right.
But before, like with these movies coming out in the 80s, like they didn't have that concept.
Yeah. All right, Sean, I'm sure you've got a lot of thoughts running through your head, so this is your moment.
I hope it makes sense for you to jump off of that. I'm sorry. For the people watching, I just came out of work and my brain is fried.
My preface, my perspective is strictly from my relationships and the relationships that I've experienced around me, the most critical ones. Specifically, the fact that, I am a child of divorce. My parents split up when I was a junior in high school. Divorce became finalized when I was a senior. My mom was the one who moved out. The relationship had not been happy for a long time when that happened. And I myself have had historically my history has been with monogamous relationships up until my current one, and which is not a full-fledged polycule. Is never going to be a full-fledged polycule. We're not looking for another full-time life, girlfriend, full-time partner, what have you. We're in the lifestyle, so it's open pretty much in the sense of everything is almost entirely in the realm of casual dating and responsible sex with other people. So that's kind of where I'm coming at from, to kind of give you some idea. But my opinion is that given when I grew up and my earliest memories of relationships being depicted in pop culture were in the very late 80s and early 90s, when Gen X and my generation started getting real brutally honest about a whole lot of shit. And American conservatives took that honesty very fucking personally. The pot shots at Murphy Brown, the Bundys, the Simpsons, a lot of depictions, a lot of very real, frank depictions of less than idyllic American family situations. But what nobody wanted to come right out and admit was they were very fucking real to us. Those were our realities. This was not some shit we were just making up off the top of our fucking heads. And as my generation came of age, that was what we started depicting in our media as we went along, which is how at the end of the 90s and early 2000s, why we got more movies, I think, like American Beauty. And it really did explode the notion that monogamy is not all it's cracked up to be. That classic old chestnut of, in my day, if something was broke, we didn't throw it away, we fixed it. Fuck you. No, you didn't fix shit. You swept it under the rug. You made it societally unacceptable to talk about it. If anyone did talk about it, you shamed and ostracized them and concluded that it must be their fucking fault. You disregarded and did your best to eradicate anything that depicted any reality except the norm. So no, you didn't fix shit, and fuck you for claiming that you did. What you did was you perpetuated a narrative that it was better to stay in an unhealthy, toxic, possibly even violent relationship for the kids, which, by the way,
hurts them more
than to concede that it wasn't working, this wasn't healthy for anyone, and that the best thing that anyone could possibly do was for both adults in the relationship to go their separate ways, find their own happiness, and figure out how to co-parent. But this movie, of course, predates that realization, where these kinds of feelings and these kinds of realities are, it's treated in a very charming way. When I saw this, the first movies that came to mind were the original Bedazzled, and maybe a much less cheeky, risque rendition of the classic Emmanuel sex comedies.
By the way,
with
when you put these three movies together, do you think we would ever get this deep?
Yes, because I've been doing this a while.
Well, you know what? Comedy has a beating heart behind it.
It does.
It has a beating heart of reality. No matter.
Mark, you're gonna say something. Go ahead.
Well, I know you were trying to be funny, but here's the thing. I think all three of these movies are extremely relatable. Like I said, before I threw it to Sean, and Sean, I'm going to throw it back to you, but we are almost at 2 hours, so you got to wrap up.
I'll try.
When two of the three of these movies deal with, it's not right to cheat, but I want to. I have a feeling, and what am I supposed to do with? See, here's the thing. We're talking about a very specific kind of thing, but let me broaden this up in a very general way, and that's why I can say, yeah, sure, I knew we were going to get deep in this because these movies lend themselves to that, whether people realized it or not. When you have something going on inside of you that does not find expression, it finds its way out in other ways, sometimes very negative ways. Without going too much on a tangent, Lily has once or twice said to me, I was afraid to bring this to you because I thought you would be mad or I thought I would be in trouble. And I said, Lily, you will never be in trouble for telling me about yourself, because I would rather you come and tell me, if you tell me you're gay, if you tell me you're asexual, if you tell me you're aromantic, if you tell me you think you're a unicorn, if you tell me you're a Martian, just fucking tell me, because I would rather you express those. Because, well, not only that, but I would rather you express. Look, I've been in the mental health field a long time. Teen suicide, because you can't talk about being gay, is real. And I would rather have live children who are different than dead children who couldn't come out and tell me what was going on inside their head. Go ahead, Sean. I'm going to give you the final word here, and then we're going to wrap.
Yeah, sure. I'll try to. Like I said, is behind all comedy, there's a very real beating heart, sometimes of sadness. That's one thing that you'll find in common if you look at Gabriel Iglesias, John Mulaney, Richard Pryor, and Taylor Tomlinson. Is it may not always be the same tones, but there's struggle in all of their material at some point or another.
Very quickly,
and
the other side of that is most people who write horror are the funniest people you'll ever meet.
Often, yes, they're not only funny, but they're extremely articulate. They're extremely thoughtful. They're extremely judicious with how they express things, and it's because, yes, oftentimes when you're trying to talk about these very tough subjects, and again, I go back to like The Simpsons and the Bundys, and if we're drawing comparisons to horror, what you have.
By the way, people by audio, he means Married with Children Bundy's, not Bundy as in serial killer.
Anyway, as I'm trying to say, is the fact that they're embracing that notion that a spoonful of sugar helps the heroin go down, and the fact that yes, you can make these very super important, dramatic, constantly grimacing, teeth gritting, white knuckle dramas about your personal angst, but often what's going to get people to actually sit down, shut up, listen, and realize, is if you put it behind something that's going to be much more abstract, much more colorful, and even sometimes a little bit escapist. That's how you get a movie like, say, Alien, for example, that has themes of male sexual violation woven into piano wire tense atmospheric sci-fi action and horror. If you really watch The Simpsons, one of the reasons why especially a lot of very early Simpsons resonates so much, is because a lot of it is extremely personal to the writers, and there is a metric fuck ton of heart behind it, or even go clear back to All in the Family. Is yes, a lot of it was centered on the joke butt of Archie Bunker being an absolute prick. But you definitely can't say that Norman Lear wasn't getting a point across with what he was saying. And it feels like that's what movies like these are doing, or at least trying to do as well, with varying degrees of success. But I think that LOL and Blame It on Rio in particular were the ones that were kind of fighting hardest to leave you with something that would leave the theater with you.
And I also think, very quickly before I shut up and let Mark take us home, it also taught us, not only you and Mark's generation, but also mine, how to be a better boyfriend, fiance, and husband. Because we're seeing all these things like, I would never do that to you ever. No. You know, and it's the shoot.
This has been Mark Radulich's podcast where we explain why Polly is better than
People have been listening for the last 10 years, like, he didn't used to be so focused on this. They used to talk about Superman. Yeah, like now every other podcast it's polyamory and swingers and what the fuck.
So that was a quick funny.
No, that's good. That's, you know what? Yeah, I go where the muse takes me, kitten.